Well, about 4 years ago, I remember I was sitting there reading, and my cat was waiting by the door. His tail swinging back and forth, and he's just waiting there. He was waiting there for like an hour, excited about something, but very still. I didn't really know what he was doing, and I just kept reading. And all of a sudden, I heard this pounce, and the squeak, 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 and I'm like, oh my God, it's a mouse. He got a mouse. So I quickly got up, and I walked over there, and I squatted down, and he had his paw on this poor little mouse. This mouse was on his back, and his legs were just kicking, and he was squeaking and scared to death. And suddenly I just felt the fear in the mouse and this tremendous sympathy for that mouse. And I also loved my cat, and I knew that that was his, quote, genetic program. That was his, quote, instinct. I loved my cat. It wasn't his fault. Heck, I even got him toys that mimicked mice. He was following his genetic program. But in that moment, I loved my cat. I wasn't blaming him, even though that mouse would call my cat more evil than a human would call a demon. Because cats don't just kill you. They play with you. Would a mouse not call a cat the most evil thing ever? And this poor little mouse is on his back, and Cosmo's got his paw on that mouse. And in that moment, suddenly the intention, looking back, I know now. I just experienced it then, now I understand. My love, and the love of the larger scalar spirit, came through. I loved my cat, and I loved that mouse. And I gently started petting my cat. I didn't restrain him, I didn't yell at him, I didn't hold him back, I didn't make him do anything. I just expressed my intention. Just the intention. It wasn't like I was trying to radiate energy at him. It just was what it was. And he picked up on it. I loved the mouse and I loved my cat. And then by himself, he took his paw off of the mouse. On his own. I didn't make him do it. And then that mouse turned over and slowly walked away right in front of him. And I was so proud of him. It was the love that was able to override and command the ego of my cat. It wasn't my mind commanding his mind. It was the love and intention of the spirit. It changed his DNA. In that moment, he was not a predator. He decided to let that mouse go. So what is a predator then? Other than a perversion of DNA. You weren't around for the original history, the original flora and fauna of planet Earth. They created the food chain on purpose, a long time ago, and with ease. So easy you have no idea the complexity of this consciousness. But love can turn a predator into a non-predator, meaning if love creates everything and there's a disconnection here, it is the disconnection that is the problem, not any being that is disconnected. And if love can make a cat let go of a mouse, something it wants so bad, right? Its mind, its instinct. Oh, they don't want anything more than that. He took his own paw off. I didn't make him. Why? Why would that work? Why was it pure love? Because I wasn't yelling at him, and I wasn't making him feel guilty either. I didn't make him feel like a lesser creature for doing that to the mouse. I caught it, and love says, move on. I'm not going to hold you in guilt. Just understand. I love you too, and I'm not going to punish you or anything. I want you to understand right now. If I were to yell at him, that would have just exacerbated his predator instinct. If I tried to restrain him, that would have, with a bipolar mind, the mind mechanism, would have just activated him as a predator by making him feel guilty so he backlashes against it, right? It's like going up to an alcoholic and yelling at him for being an alcoholic. What are they going to do? Probably go to the store and buy a six-pack because you exacerbated the addiction. So I know that love can override these things, and I know that if that happened, then everything you think is not. Predator? I don't think so. I think things are going to change. For example, I recently took a trip through the Bible Belt, and I'll describe what happened on that trip later. But I found myself down in Florida. I was guided to go into a strip club. And you're thinking, yeah, I'm sure you were guided, Jonathan. But it's not what you think. I like to be around those people. For some reason, they're the ones that I know are being held down. And that doesn't mean that I go in there with my personality and say, oh, you're more held down than I am. I'm better than you. No, it's quite the opposite. I went in and immediately went way in the back corner. Some of the girls came up and wanted me to tip them, and I made them understand that's not what I want to do. And they would sit down and talk to me, and we talked a lot about spirit, a lot about what's going on in the country and all kinds of things. And I was sitting there, and then it happened. You see why you're led to do things. And in comes this girl, who apparently had stripped there before. And they wouldn't let her strip that night for whatever reason. There was some conflict, and so they wouldn't let her ask for tips. They wouldn't let her strip or dance or anything. So she sat down next to me, and we started talking. She was pretty and all that. Jonathan's ego would take notice of that. And so the law of attraction, the magnetic coupling of energies of the minds, the egos, took place, and her base chakra became active, her root chakra, her sex energy. And I could feel it. She started to bat her eyes at me and tell me how she's married, but occasionally her husband lets her play, that type of thing. The whole temptation. Of course, there was an entity attached to her. And I started to feel it strongly, and then I had to tell her, I said, I feel your base chakra, your root chakra. I can feel the energy. I said, I'm going to turn that off, okay? And she looked at me. She said, no, you're not. I said, give me your hands. So I held her hands. And then what I tried to do was focus my energy, like an energy worker would do, to turn off her base chakra. And I sat there for 30 seconds, focusing really hard with the mind to try to manipulate her energy and bring it into, quote, balance. Then I let go after 30 seconds with this confident look on my face. I said, how do you feel now? She said, the same, and laughed. She said, I'm still horny. I'm like, oh, yeah. The same thing that happened with that scenario with the girl who had cancer, right? And then the information started coming in my head via the spirit. She was molested. I said, were you molested as a child? Right out of the blue. Her expression changed. She said, yeah. Your father, right? Yeah. Your husband lets you play, huh? And lets you strip? Give me your hands again. And this time, I wasn't trying to manipulate energy. I loved her. Inside, I loved what was in her. It wasn't her fault. The whole thing isn't her fault. The fact that she's a stripper there, under the control of entities, magnetically coupled to an abusive husband, a using husband, it's not her fault. And I loved the spirit in her. Suddenly, she let go of my hands, gasped, and said, oh my God, that worked. She got off her stool, walked about 5 feet, collapsed, fell against the wall. She had to sit there for a moment. What happened? She was possessed by an entity. And I started loving her spirit to the point, like jump-starting a car, that it started to rise inside of her in challenge. the entity's control, which created that visceral, that somatic symptom of dizziness and illness, a really challenging feeling inside of her own mind. She came back to the stool and had a different point of view. And then I explained to her. And she was under the command of love at that point, as was I. It wasn't Jonathan's mind explaining life to her, because Jonathan's mind doesn't know anything. Jonathan's mind experiences these things. And at the end of that, I just said, "You're loved." And I know the Spirit will take it from there. Because I loved her. And love sustains. And I will continue to do so. I don't have to be in her presence. I first understood the properties of love when I came into contact with a girl who synchronously I met and started talking to her about life and whatnot, and brought up this cancer condition and what's happening is synchronously, or not synchronously, but intuitively. And she allowed me to finish what I was saying, and then finally she says, "Are you sure about that cancer thing?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, then explain this to me." She said, "I have cancer." She's a young girl, a college student. She was there singing. It was I went with her to observe her sing, not to flirt with her like the binary mind would assume. I knew it was a lesson of some sort. I was directed to meet her. And there I learned a lesson of love. I was born what the structural psychic mind would call a healer, because I can manipulate my chi energy no problem. I didn't have to learn about that. I could always move it around, relieve some pain in individuals, and focus my chi anywhere in my body to relieve pain, just like consciousness around a proton nucleus of an atom may manifest an electron. That's all chi focusing is, localizing the energy, seeing a daisy in your mind. And bound to structure, I was there, and I said, okay, well, she had cancer, and I'm making this, it's a longer story, but I'm trying to shorten it up for you. And so I said, okay, stand up. Usually I could just put my hands over somebody's body and feel where there are problems. I could feel some imbalance. I'm like, okay. So I tried to direct my energy and take away her pain. And then I finished, and I said, so how do you feel? Are you still in pain? She said, yeah. It didn't work. She became anxious then. No, I knew one of the main reasons that I had to go with her to watch her sing is because she was shy. She didn't want me to hear her sing. That type of shame. I knew there was a reason there. It's cancer. Doctor says that I shouldn't even be alive right now. It's only a matter of time. And she started getting anxious, and all of a sudden her breathing turned into this. I said, do you have tumors in your lungs? She said, yeah, they moved to my lungs. And then I realized, okay, the energy manipulation didn't work. Looking for a cure for cancer won't work. And then the Creator did what it does. Look at her. What is she? She's a girl. What is she? She's your creation. What are you? I'm your creation. Did you create her? No. What's a sin, John? Why don't your skin cells attack each other in your body? Why don't your body's cells attack each other when you're healthy? Why don't they steal from each other, lust after each other, try to manipulate each other, take from each other, use each other to seek pleasure and avoid pain? What is that when they do that, John? That's cancer. Does it have anything to do with good or bad, John? Would you design a car that had engine parts that would lie to themselves and each other within the machine, the apparatus? Would that be an efficient design? Would you make the design that way? No. Does it have anything to do with good or bad? No. It just works or it doesn't, right? Who loves you? What are you, John? Did you create yourself? That which is inside of you, did you create that? No. Did you create her? No. Were you just looking at her tits? Yep. What is she, John? How would you have viewed this when you were 2 years old, John? What's inside of her? You? How do you feel about what's inside of her? Who's been pulling you out of your rut and showing you and giving you the honor of loving everybody else? You? Who created you? You did? Who's inside of you? You? What are you doing if you hurt another person, John? How do you feel about her, John? Look at her. What's inside of there? What have I done for you? Have you been attacked? Hounded? Tortured? Yep. Did I or did I not pull you out of that? Like nothing. Is she capable of healing herself, John? You tell me. Who's in her, John? You? And I understood again. I understood when I never had to learn. Right off the bat. I understood why a child wants to share until they learn not to. And I didn't have to radiate energy at her. I didn't have to point my hand at her. She's talking about her situation, looking away from me, having trouble breathing, and I started to love her. As a creation, I loved her. It was just, I knew she could do it, that she could completely change her own body, and she's disconnected. And something happened, and this energy emerged, her breathing went from and she sat there and she just looked at the ground. I said, what happened? She said, I don't know. I said, are you still in pain? She said, no. She turned around and she started singing for me with clear lungs. She doesn't have cancer anymore. You are in a world where a doctor tells you need medication, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation treatment. You are inside of a tumor. The only reason this tumor is still in existence is because the Creator is gonna heal it all. You cannot send love. The insanity of this planet right now is disconnection from what I'm telling you. You need no Bible. You need no protocol. Someone's going to ask me if I believe in the Creator.
I'm crossing that bridge with lessons of love. I'm playing with fire and not getting burned. I may not know what you're going through, but time is the space between me and you. There is a light through that window. Hold on, say yes while people say no. 'Cause life carries on. It goes on. It goes on. Life carries on. When nothing else matters. When nothing else matters. I just don't know what's got into me. How long before I get in? Before it starts, before I begin? How long before you decide? Or before I know? own of mine.